In a residential area of New York, surrounded by mansions that look straight out of a Christmas card, a beat-up old car pulls up in front of an immense, snow-covered property. Millie approaches in the car, adjusts the glasses she doesn't actually need, and walks toward the door with a completely fake resume tucked under her arm. She has no college degree, no experience as a housekeeper, and very recently was sleeping in the back seat of that very same car. Nina Winchester greets her with a warm smile and a table full of snacks and tea, a bit too elaborate for a simple job interview. Nina reviews the resume and comments that she seems overqualified, noting she even has a college degree and could apply for something better. Millie confidently replies that she enjoys this type of work and would be the best candidate. Nina seems satisfied with the answer and begins explaining the conditions. Her duties will be cleaning the house, cooking, and helping care for her daughter Cece, a 7-year-old girl who is obsessed with ballet. It is a live-in position, so Millie will live in the mansion and have Saturdays off for personal matters. Nina takes her on a tour of the house, and each room seems more impressive than the last. It has 2 kitchens, a private theater, and a conference room, all meticulously designed by her husband Andrew, a successful software engineer in the tech industry. Nina mentions in passing that sometimes the house feels like a prison, and as she says it, her eyes widen a bit more than normal, but Millie lets the comment slide. Upon reaching the 2nd floor, Nina whispers a confession. She is pregnant and needs help urgently because of it, but she asks Millie not to say anything to Andrew because she hasn't found the right moment to break the news yet. Millie nods and congratulates her. She also shows her Cece's room, where there is a dollhouse identical to the real mansion, with figurines of the family dining peacefully. Nina warns her that she can only enter the girl's room if Cece gives permission, because she is very possessive of her things. Finally, they climb a long staircase to the attic, which will be Millie's room. The space is simple and completely isolated from the rest of the house. Nina tells her it's a very private place, soundproofed, and that she can play music or do whatever she wants without anyone hearing her. The way she says it sends a slight chill down Millie's spine, but the prospect of a roof and free food sounds too good to turn down. As they say goodbye, Nina hands her $20 for gas and promises to call soon. Millie leaves the property knowing Nina probably won't contact her once she runs the background check, because everything on that resume is a lie. She doesn't even need the glasses, she only wore them to look professional. The reality is, she just got out of prison, lives in her car, washes up in gas station bathrooms, and will use the $20 Nina gave her for her first decent meal of the week. That night, Millie parks her car in a lot and falls asleep. The next morning, police officers wake her up by tapping on the window and warning her she can't sleep there. Just then, her phone rings. It's Nina, telling her she got the job and must start immediately. Millie can't believe it, but without a second thought, she starts the car and heads to the mansion. Upon arrival, the intercom doesn't work, but on the other side of the fence is Enzo, the estate's gardener, who opens the gate without saying a word. He just stares at her for a few uncomfortable seconds before walking away. Millie ignores the strange moment and drives in, but upon entering the house, she's in for a huge surprise. The place is a complete disaster. Clothes, dishes, and food are scattered everywhere, as if a hurricane had torn through. Nina appears immediately, telling her to start cleaning right now because she has to finish a very important speech for the school's PTA, and they'll discuss other responsibilities later. Millie spends the entire day cleaning tirelessly, and by nightfall, the house has regained some of its original look. That's when Andrew and Cece appear. Andrew is a handsome and charismatic man, but he is visibly surprised by Millie's presence, having no idea Nina had conducted interviews, let alone that someone would be living in their house. However, when Nina mentions Millie will be staying in the attic room, Andrew looks at her closely and offers a small smile. Millie feels the awkwardness of the situation and prefers to go up to her room without dinner, but Nina brings her a plate of food shortly after. Once in the attic, Millie tries to open the window and discovers it's sealed shut. Then she notices the door can only be locked from the outside, not the inside. Nina explains they've never been able to open that window and promises to get her a key for the door, mentioning the attic used to serve as file storage for Andrew. To change the subject, she hands her a new phone with the family credit card loaded on it so she can buy whatever is needed for the house, asking her to keep it on and charged at all times. With a hug, Nina says goodnight, and Millie is left alone in a room where she controls neither the door nor the window, but at least she has a roof over her head for the first time in a long while. The next morning, the weeks of sleeping in the car take their toll on Millie, and she oversleeps. When she tries to open the door, she finds it locked from the outside, and screams coming from downstairs put her on alert. After struggling with the latch, she manages to run down to the kitchen, where she finds Nina completely hysterical, violently opening drawers, throwing dishes on the floor, and screaming that her notes for the PTA speech have disappeared. Nina is convinced Millie threw them in the trash while cleaning and keeps repeating it with an unblinking fixed stare. Andrew appears amidst the chaos, gently holds her in his arms, and offers her a hot bath to calm down, promising they will rewrite the speech together before evening. Once Nina leaves, Andrew tells Millie not to worry, that there are good days and bad days, and that he will handle everything. While Millie takes the trash out to the garden, Enzo approaches and asks what she is doing in that house. He seems to want to tell her something important, but then he notices Nina watching them from the window, so he shuts his mouth and walks away. Later, while cleaning the master bathroom, Millie finds a pill inside the toilet. The shape of the tablet catches her attention, so she puts it in her pocket. Seconds later, Nina appears behind her like a ghost, looks at her with an unsettling expression, and orders her in a sharp tone to get out of there and start making dinner. That night, while Andrew and Cece eat dinner, the little girl forces Millie to wash her glass several times before accepting to drink from it. Andrew asks Millie to stay and eat with them, but she prefers to retreat to her room. Alone, Millie checks Andrew's Instagram profile and confirms what she already suspected. He is attractive, kind, a dedicated father, and she doesn't understand how someone like that can be with a woman as unstable as Nina. That night she has a dream where Andrew comes up to the attic, brings her a cake and kisses her, but she wakes up with a start, realizing none of it was real. The next morning, Nina appears out of nowhere and hands her the key to her room, but also demands that she never dine alone with her husband again. When Saturday arrives, Millie gets ready to go out and enjoy her day off, but Nina stops her and says she lost that privilege for throwing away her speech notes. Millie tries to explain she has an important meeting she cannot miss, but Nina couldn't care less. However, Andrew steps in and says he's taking Cece to the park, so there's no reason for Millie to stay. Nina has no choice but to accept. Millie reports to her parole officer, as she spent 10 years in prison and must attend these mandatory appointments to avoid going back behind bars. The officer warns her she must keep her job at all costs, because any trouble will result in serving the remaining 5 years of her sentence. As soon as she leaves the appointment, Nina calls to ask her to pick up Cece from ballet class without giving the address or time. Millie manages to get there on time, but upon introducing herself, Patrice, the mother of one of Cece's classmates, informs her the girl has a sleepover planned for weeks and that Nina knew perfectly well. When Patrice calls Nina to confirm, Nina makes Millie look like a forgetful and incompetent employee who got everything mixed up. Back at the mansion, Nina acts as if nothing happened and introduces her to Evelyn, Andrew's mother, who is visiting and has brought an antique set of fine china that has been in the family for generations. The woman looks Millie up and down, criticizes her clothes, and gives precise instructions on how to care for the china, making it clear that everyone knows Nina tends to break things and those plates must be kept away from her. That night, the stifling heat in the attic forces Millie to go down to the TV room. Andrew appears shortly after with a drink in hand and sits beside her. During the conversation, Millie asks if Nina is mad at her, and Andrew tells her that his wife had a very difficult childhood. Her parents died in a fire when she was a child, and she was the sole survivor, though rumors say it was Nina who started the fire. Before he can continue, Nina interrupts, finding them together on the sofa. Andrew quickly excuses himself and goes up to sleep, and as soon as she is alone with Millie, Nina fires her on the spot. Millie begs for another chance, swearing she had no idea Andrew would come down and has no intentions with her husband. Nina thinks for a moment and agrees to give her one more week, but warns her to dress more modestly and stay away from Andrew. A few days later, Nina's friends come over for tea. Millie overhears their conversations while serving the table and learns that Nina isn't actually pregnant, but has been trying to conceive with Andrew for some time without success. But the most shocking revelation comes when Nina leaves the room and her friends begin to speak without a filter. They say Nina spent 9 months in a psychiatric hospital for trying to drown Cece in the bathtub when she was younger, and they don't understand how Andrew has put up with her for so long. In everyone's eyes, Andrew is a saint, the perfect husband, and the best father they've ever seen. That night, Nina burst into Millie's room without knocking and tells her that because she eavesdropped on her friends' private conversations, she loses her day off once again. She orders her to watch Cece on Saturday while she and Andrew go to a medical appointment in the city. Taking advantage of being alone, Millie checks the medicine cabinet in the master bedroom and discovers Nina's medication is for treating psychotic disorders. Worried, she starts calling old acquaintances looking for any other job to get out of that house as soon as possible. While playing with Cece, Millie discovers the girl entered her room and stole a troll doll she has kept for years. She asks her not to go into her room again, but the argument is interrupted when Nina arrives, crying inconsolably. Andrew explains to Millie in private that the medical results were not good. Nina suffers from premature ovarian failure and won't be able to have children. He confesses he always wanted children of his own, and although he loves Cece, the girl doesn't share his blood, which frustrates him. He asks Millie to be patient because the next few days will be difficult. That early morning, blood-curdling screams wake Millie up. She runs down thinking Andrew is in danger, but when the master bedroom door opens, she finds Nina holding a huge bloody shard of glass with a disturbing smile on her face. Nina begins to repeat word for word everything her supposed friends said about her behind her back, proving she heard every single thing. Andrew appears behind her, carefully takes the glass away, hands her a towel for the wound, and shuts the door in Millie's face. The next morning, Nina comes down carrying a huge pile of expensive clothes and gives them to Millie as an apology. She confesses she was so convinced that manifesting the pregnancy would work that she didn't think about her body not responding, and that all she wants is to make Andrew happy by giving him a son. Then she asks her to buy 2 tickets for a night show and book a romantic suite at a hotel to spend the weekend with her husband. That afternoon, while waiting for Cece at ballet class, Millie meets a woman named Susan, who worked as a nanny for the Winchesters for a couple of months. Susan warns her to be very careful and tells her what allegedly happened that night. Nina threw Cece into the bathtub and then tried to kill herself by swallowing an entire bottle of pills. And if Andrew hadn't come home from work in time, they would both be dead. Millie returns to the mansion with a knot in her stomach and looks for Enzo to ask him what he knows about the family. But before the gardener can open his mouth, Nina interrupts them in a rage. She demands to know why Millie bought tickets for a night show, and Millie reminds her that she was the one who asked for them. Nina flatly denies it, telling her she has a trip to art camp with Cece that Saturday, and since the tickets are non-refundable, the cost will come out of Millie's salary. Andrew arrives just at that moment and, while Nina isn't listening, assures Millie that he will cover everything, and she shouldn't worry about a thing. Nina and Cece leave for the camp, leaving Andrew and Millie alone in the mansion for the weekend. Andrew tells her she deserves a break and offers her the show tickets so she can go with a friend, but Millie confesses she has no one to invite. Andrew offers to accompany her, and Millie accepts. She puts on one of the dresses Nina gave her, and when she comes downstairs, Andrew is speechless when he sees her. They spend an unforgettable evening. They attend the show, have dinner at a fancy restaurant, toast with martinis, and share glances they can no longer hide. By the end of the night, Andrew is too drunk to drive, so he books 2 rooms at the hotel. Once settled in, Millie turns on her phone and the screen floods with hundreds of messages and missed calls from Nina. Terrified, she runs to Andrew's room to show him what is happening. He tells her to calm down, that everything will be fine, and then he kisses her. They spend the night together. The next morning, they return to the house early and breathe a sigh of relief to see that Nina hasn't arrived yet. During lunch with Nina back, everything seems calm until Nina mentions without any filter that Millie spent 10 years in prison. Millie's blood runs cold, but she keeps her composure. It becomes clear that Nina knew from the beginning that the resume was fake and hired her anyway, knowing Millie couldn't afford to quit because it would worsen her legal situation. Nina hands her a shopping list and lends her the car to go to the supermarket. While running errands, Millie runs into one of Nina's friends, who sees the phone she was given and comments that it's the same model she uses to track her kids, and that the app Nina installed allows her to see and hear everything. Millie suddenly realizes that Nina knows about the affair with Andrew. As she leaves the supermarket, the police stop and handcuff her. Someone reported the car as stolen. Millie ends up in the back of a patrol car until Andrew shows up and gets her out of the mess. When they return to the house, Nina confronts them directly. She has proof from the hotel, knows about the infidelity, and threatens to bury Millie in jail. Andrew explodes. He screams that he's had enough and kicks her out of the house, making it clear that everything there belongs to him and his family. Before leaving, Nina slaps Millie and walks out the door crying. The following days are a dream for Millie. She goes from being the employee to sharing the master bedroom with Andrew. They cook together, and everything seems perfect. One morning, she decides to surprise him by bringing breakfast in bed, using Evelyn's fine china. But as she walks toward the stairs, Enzo stares at her from the garden and startles her so much that she drops the tray, shattering one of the valuable plates into pieces. Andrew is furious when he sees what happened and immediately goes out to fire Enzo. Then, in an unusually cold tone, he asks Millie to pick up every single piece and put them in a bag so someone can repair the plate. That afternoon, upon returning from work, Andrew finds the bag with the fragments dirty with food and gets upset because Millie didn't take the time to wash them. Even so, he takes her to the attic. They open a bottle of champagne and spend the night together. When Millie wakes up, the attic is completely empty. All the furniture is gone and the door is locked. On the other side, Andrew tells her in a calm voice that he is sorry, but she deserves a punishment. He slides a piece of the broken plate under the door and orders her to make 21 cuts on her body, one for each fragment the china broke into. If the cuts aren't deep enough, she will have to start over. And that is when the whole truth comes to light. Nina, after being kicked out of the house, didn't crumble. She got in her car, drove a few blocks, and stopped to celebrate, screaming with joy. She ended up in a hotel room toasting with champagne and burning photos of Andrew because she was finally free. The reality is that Andrew was always the monster. From the first day of their marriage, he controlled, isolated, and tortured her. The first time he locked her in that same attic was because Nina didn't touch up her roots as he had ordered. To let her out, he demanded she pull out 100 strands of hair with the root intact and put them in an envelope. It took her 3 tries to get it right. When she finally ran down to find Cece, she discovered Andrew had put sedatives in her water. She passed out, and when she woke up, she found Cece in the bathtub with the water running. Before she could get her out, the police arrested her, and Andrew appeared, playing the perfect, worried father. Nina spent 9 months in a psychiatric hospital, and when she got out, Cece already loved Andrew more than her. Since then, she was his prisoner. She managed to get on birth control in secret and bribed the doctor to tell Andrew she was infertile. Enzo knew the whole situation because his own sister had suffered at the hands of a similar man, and together they tried to plan an escape, but Andrew always caught them. Nina understood that running wouldn't work, so she came up with another plan. She needed Andrew to leave her for another woman, a young woman, alone, with no family and in need of protection, exactly like Millie. In the attic, Millie connects the dots and realizes Nina used her as her replacement. But instead of giving up, she remembers why she ended up in prison. When she was a teenager, a high school classmate abused one of her friends, and Millie hit him in the head with a ceramic vase until she killed him. Her friend never testified. The boy's father paid to have her locked up, and her own family turned their back on her. With that strength she already demonstrated once, Millie makes the 21 cuts, and when Andrew opens the door to check on her, she attacks him with a knife Nina had left hidden in the attic fridge, knowing whoever occupied that room would need it. Millie wounds him in the neck and manages to lock him in the attic. Then she slides a pair of pliers under the door and demands he pull out a tooth, or she will destroy every piece of his mother's china. Andrew obeys. That night, Nina returns to the house to get Millie, and thinking she is still locked up, goes up to the attic and opens the door, releasing Andrew by mistake. He attacks her and throws her down the stairs, then goes after Millie and tries to suffocate her, but she manages to escape. Andrew goes back to Nina and suggests starting over, as if nothing had happened. But Millie appears from behind and pushes him over the railing. Andrew falls 3 stories and dies instantly. Nina begs Millie to run, saying she doesn't deserve to carry the consequences of this. Detective Smythe arrives to investigate, and Nina tells her Andrew fell while changing a light bulb. The officer stares at her and confesses that her sister Kathy was Andrew's girlfriend years ago, and since then her life has been destroyed. Without saying more, she classifies the death as a tragic accident. At the funeral, Evelyn mourns her son while Nina's friends feign condolences. Days later, Nina sells the house and gives Millie a check for $100,000 to start a new life. But Millie can't move because of her parole, so Nina recommends her for another job as a housekeeper at the home of a woman named Lorena. When Millie arrives for the interview, Lorena tells her that Nina spoke highly of her and that she knows how to deal with difficult husbands. Millie notices the bruises on Lorena's hands and the exhausted look of a woman trapped in the same nightmare Nina just escaped from. Without hesitating for a second, Millie smiles and asks when she can start.